What's repentance? A feeling of sorrow? Is it just a feeling of sorrow? Sincere, how do we define sincere sorrow, somebody said?
True sorrow.
Like being sorry and meaning it. Right? Okay. How do you know when somebody means it?
They don't do it again.
They don't do it again. That's a very important point. Father, I just murdered 20 people. 3 our failures and 2 our fathers. Can you see how what man does compared to what God does is going to be totally different with this subject? In between there's something that we need to know about. And for those of you who haven't heard it before, it's called the law, which is not a very bright thing. It's called the law of compensation. Some have heard me talk about that a bit. It's what you sow, you reap. Does that make sense? That's the law of compensation. Now, God created this law. The reason why God creates laws is laws are the only way to actually keep the universe in harmony with love. So all of God's laws are harmonious with love. And God created every law harmonious with love. And the law of compensation is a great law that He created harmonious with love that affects the soul. In other words, it's a soul-based law. It's a law that affects your soul. Every soul on earth is, and in the spirit world is affected by this law, called the law of compensation. And the law of compensation is simply, whatever you create, right, you will experience a penalty for its creation in your soul if it's disharmonious with love. In other words, what you sow, you reap. Now, why I bring that up is because if a person actually, like in Gary's case, for instance, these ministers who are administering so-called punishment upon children, beating Gary every second day for whatever he was supposedly have done wrong as a child.
Yeah, I didn't learn the catechism.
Yeah, okay.
150 questions and answers.
So he didn't learn his catechism, and there was a belting every day or every second day for it. A cane. Like, sounds a bit like torture to me, but doesn't it to you? And it's exactly what it felt like to Gary. So these men, and many of them did enjoy the process of administering this punishment, right, upon Gary, because he can remember their faces as they were doing it. And he could feel that joy that they got out of it. Now these men were acting in disharmony with love. Now every single thing that happened to Gary, every belting he got and the pain that caused him, will be a pain that they experience. Now you imagine that. If you're belted like 500 children over the course of your life with a cane, you are going to have to experience, under this law of compensation, your soul will experience the exact pain that you administered on yourself. You will feel it.
I had a question around that when I heard you speak that, and the example at the time was Hitler. Now both my parents lived under German occupation, and that left a trauma on me. Does Hitler feel that also? So when does it stop for him?
When it's all finished.
Wow.
But hang on a sec, there's another law, you see. This is why I want to talk about this subject. The truth is, without the laws of divine love, Hitler would continue feeling the law of compensation. Every single event and experience, that every pain that every single person has ever felt that occurred because of his choices. And by the way, not all of them occurred because of his choices. Many of them occurred because of the choices of all those around him. Right? But every single thing is attributed to the full choice from God's perspective and the law of compensation, you will have to experience it. You will experience the pain of it. This is the law of compensation. Who's scared? Well, you think about that in your own life. You think about every single time you treated your child in a way that caused an emotion within them of pain, you are going to have to feel that pain. You think about that. That's pretty big, isn't it?
Even if it's a discipline thing.
Especially if it's a discipline. Yes.
No, I don't mean physical. I mean, if you
Yes,
stop
there's
doing
many discipline forms that are not harmonious with love that are certainly going to have to be experienced by you or somebody who's had a child who have administered these unloving discipline forms on their children, which God would never administer, by the way.
Is that only on the natural love path?
This is a natural love, and this is a general principle of the soul, a soul law based around the soul, and it's going to happen. And whether you believe me or not right now, when you pass, you will start feeling this law if you don't believe me now. I can guarantee you, every single spirit who's here today has felt the effects of this law once they've passed in particular.
Is that tying karma? Or is it
Yes, very much so. It's the same law. Well, it's more to do with what you sow, you reap. But yeah, because there are other laws revolving around cause and effect. But sure, the law of compensation is a cause and effect based law. Yep.
Does that include animals as well?
Anything you've done to animals?
Yeah.
Yep.
And therefore you've eaten meat?
Yep.
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 What do you do with innocence? What do you do with what's perpetuated upon you is done in innocence? How do you understand the law of attraction when you come into the womb and it starts from that point?
True. But all of the things that are... See, God knows, God's laws are perfect. God knows exactly, right, when something has been attributed to you, when it's been attributed to your parents' choices, or their parents' choices, or Adam and Eve's, if we can call them that, choices. Whoever, God knows exactly all the choices that have ever been made. All of his laws operate this way. Every single thing cannot be got away with. In the Paget messages we said to James Paget, the laws of God on the law of compensation grind so finely that nothing escapes them. Now, don't get all down about this.
Can I just clarify something?
There's a lot of spirits that are getting... Like, I don't know if you can feel your feelings now, but you can feel them going... Can you feel that?
Yes.
And a lot of the spirits with us are doing the same thing, by the way.
Are there many spirits listening to all this?
There's hundreds of thousands at the moment. And a lot of them are actually doing the same thing. They're feeling, oh no, like feeling this terrible fear. Please don't leave the conversation because there's more that I want to describe. Right? I want you to understand, though, this law of compensation.
Can I just something I'm not understanding, and I just want to clarify.
Yep, fire away.
Maybe I'm in my head or whatever. But when I was talking about discipline,
Yep.
if a child feels pain or anger or hurt because you've said they can't do something which you believe is bad for them or would be harmful, is that the sort of thing?
Yep, you will have to compensate for that.
So I still even if it's in their best interest and because you love them.
What causes you to think it's in their best interest? Was it God's interest for them?
Well, if they wanted to go out when they were in a teenager and get on the booze and all that sort of thing, would that be in their best interest?
Did God stop them from doing it?
Well, I was his mother.
No, but did God stop them from doing it?
Well, maybe God used me to stop them doing it.
Why?
Because it wasn't good for them.
No, you made the choice. You made a choice out of harmony with their free will. They have the free will to make that choice. You made a choice out of harmony.
Even when they make the choice when they're not old enough to understand things.
I don't believe I just said that. What was I just What I was saying, we all need to become childlike. What does that mean? When your children are 2 or 3 years back, they are at the most pristine state you could even imagine. What makes you think that you know better than them? Honestly.
Well, some kids at 14 think they're adults.
But only because of all the damage we've dumped on them between 3 and 14. Right? So, you know, we've got to get real about this stuff with children. The truth is that every time I break a law of free will, I am breaking a law of love. Every single time I do that, I am going to have to compensate for that. Now, can you see why a lot of people pass in the spirit world and they realise, wow, I didn't know that.
What about your intention? And what about your understanding? You know,
Oh,
do you
my
have to
intent-
understand?
I had some Catholic spirits, and I'm not denigrating the Catholic religion here on earth. I had some Catholic spirits come to me. We sat down and had a chat, if you could call it that. They told me that they're going to do everything they possibly can to kill me. Now, they're doing it with really good intentions. I actually asked them what their intention was. They believed their intentions were pure.
So your intention's part of your belief system then? Is that what you're saying?
And it matters not. The law of compensation is God's law, not yours. It's not what you think was right, it's what God knows is right. That's what it operates on, not what you think is right.
So then for me, what that tells me is that repentance is as powerful as feeling your emotions. It's as absolutely necessary.
I want to get back to this, yeah,
You
because
can't underestimate how much you might have done.
definitely not. The majority of us have done far more than what we estimate. Because, remember, it's from God's perspective, not yours. Does that make sense? It's from God's perspective we're talking about, not yours. If we want to be at one with God, we will in the end have God's perspective, not our own.
What about the law of, should I say, the law of attraction, that you're not aware of it? Because if you're not aware of it, you didn't know it, so you're not responsible for it. Surely there could be a law.
So the argument then becomes I wasn't aware of this law of compensation. So while I'm not aware of it, anything that I did with it, I won't have to pay for.
Well, if it's not immoral or wrong, you just didn't know it was wrong.
I understand what you're saying. You're basically saying ignorance is bliss. And I'm telling you it's not. It is not bliss. Ignorance is not bliss. You will find when you pass into the spirit world, many things that you were ignorant of doing here on earth, that you thought was fine, that you thought were fine, and you thought you did with the best of intentions, you will find that actually you are wrong.
So you're saying if you want to walk this earth, it has to have repentance.
No. I'm saying this is the law of compensation. I'm raising the law of compensation not with the repentance. They are linked together, and I'm going to demonstrate to you what the linkage is. All right? It's very important that you understand what the law of compensation is, though. Can you see how fine the law of compensation is? It's very important you understand that. And for all of our spirit friends here, very important that all of you understand that. Because the law of compensation is what's driving your current suffering. So there's lots and lots of spirits here who are in suffering, and the reason why they're in suffering is because the law of compensation is the law that's driving that. There is a feeling in their soul, and while they retain that feeling in their soul, the law of compensation will act upon it, and it will continuously bring to their consciousness, through pain, the results of their actions.
So is that what the hells are? Is that just an
That's what
extreme
the hells
form?
are.